Hi guys, Justin here. Welcome to episode 32 of the Chocolate Croissants podcast. This week on the podcast, we have Jake Bowen. Jake is one of the three guitar players of the band that Matt plays drums for, Periphery. This was a solo venture for Matt as he and the band are currently on a US tour, and the episode was actually recorded in the back of their tour bus. The two discuss life on the road, the change and growth of the band's dynamic over the many years of touring, and how Jake has matured through the process. One specific topic the guys dive into is bullying. As a kid, Jake moved around and was often the, quote, new kid in school. Jake, as the new kid in town, was often picked on, and the experiences forced him to develop thick skin. He had to adapt and become quite good at being on his own most of the time. Let's be honest, bullying sucks, but what's super refreshing is that Jake explains his experiences from a positive and optimistic standpoint with an inspiring view that I think everyone will benefit from. Now, speaking of something else I think everyone, or at least everyone with tattoos or those considering getting some ink done, will benefit from is our sponsor for this week's episode. This episode is brought to you by our good friends at Nata Tattoo. They are a certified, all-natural, all-vegan, and all-organic tattoo care brand. Their tattoo care kit covers all steps from how to treat and protect your fresh tattoos to how to keep them healthy and looking great even once they've fully healed. Matt has been our guinea pig since he is covered in ink, and he's always struggled with finding the best aftercare treatment due to his super sensitive skin. He's been using the Nata Tattoo Care Kit and loving it. He started with the cleanser for the first few days, then applied the lotion, and has continued now using their balm. Matt has said that the cleanser was easy on his skin, the lotion reduces the risk of inflammation and infection, and the balm has kept everything looking restored and fresh. Matt also added that he used the moisturizer and the balm on his older tattoos, and it was pretty freaking cool how much they pop even now, years later. Matt and I met the company's founder, Christy, at Health Expo East when it was in town in Baltimore a few months ago. And what was cool is that the company actually started when Christy was in search the best products for her own kids' sensitive skin similar to Matt's. This led to the formation of a luxury bath products company. But once her kids got older and started getting tattoos, her motherly instincts kicked in once again, which led to the creation of Nata Tattoo. So, whether you have existing tattoos or you're in the process of getting fresh ones now, we'd recommend giving Nata Tattoo a try. They've been kind enough to provide you, the Chocolate Croissants listeners, with a discount code which gets you 25% off any of the products in their store. Simply visit natatattoo.com. That's NAT-A-TAT2.com and use the code in all caps, chocolate25, the numbers 25, at checkout. You can also check them out on Instagram at natatattoo. That's NATATAT, the number 2. And once again, you can get your discount by using the code all caps, chocolate, the number 25, chocolate25 at checkout. Now, please enjoy episode 32 with Jake Bowen.
Hey guys, Matt Hopper here with episode 32 of the Chocolate Croissants podcast, and I'm broadcasting to you today from Philadelphia in the back of Periphery's tour bus. We've been on the road now for just about 2 weeks, and we're approaching the midway point of the tour, and I think everybody's doing pretty good overall. It's been a bit of an interesting run so far. The shows have been great. They've really been a lot of fun. The venues that we're playing are awesome, and I think, you know, from a performance perspective, everybody in Periphery, you know, we're really happy with what we've been doing, and any big issues that we've seen, we've been able to critique and try to make better. And of course, the fans have been super supportive and super awesome, so we're excited about that. On the other side, it just seems like, you know, there's just a lot of personal stuff going on for a lot of the members of the band, and it definitely makes touring harder when you're away from things at home. And as you guys know, for those that are really avid listeners, you know, I missed actually the Mexico show because I had some stuff going on with a family member, which I believe I mentioned in episode 30, and it's still been kind of a lingering, ongoing thing. So it's been really challenging in some ways, but also really rewarding to be able to get to play the shows every night despite the challenge. And one of the things that's really been keeping me excited every day and keeping me going and, really on a positive trajectory has been being with my bandmates. These guys are my brothers. We've been together now for almost 10 years, and we've done countless tours together, been through some of the most crazy ups and downs that there could possibly be, and the consistent thing through all that has been the support that comes from all of us and each other. So with that in mind, I thought it'd be very fitting today to have someone who's been a very, very great support for me on the podcast, and that is my band member, Mr. Jake Bowen, who is here with me now. So, hi, Jake. Say hello.
Hi.
Hi. So, Jake's been dealing with my bullshit for quite a many years now, but, I remember the first time that Jake and I hung out when I was first really auditioning for the band. You came up to my house.
Yeah, I was the first one there. Yeah.
You were the first one there. I remember we went out, we got gas. You were in, like, some old-ass car.
Yeah.
It was like your mom's car or something?
Well, yeah, it was my mom's car. She pretty much gave it to me, and then I destroyed it. So,
yeah.
But yeah, that was a long time ago.
You had your Gent Reznor haircut.
Yeah,
I think
I had a really weird haircut. And
the goatee.
I had a goatee which looked like I fell in the mud and didn't wipe the dirt off of my chin.
Yeah, people who have followed the band for a while will definitely know what that's about. But anyway, Jake and I had a brief chat before we did this, and Jake actually mentioned some things that he wanted to dig into today that I think is very, very fitting for a lot of the conversations that we've had on the Chocolate Croissants podcast, a lot of the questions that I've seen come through. And I kind of want to just let you dig in a little bit, kind of as to what you wanted to talk about, because to preface this, like, who I see as Jake Bowen now is a very well-rounded, very grounded, very confident, and very secure person who seems to really know themselves. Like, that's what I see, and I think everybody in the band kind of looks at you that way. For those that don't know, Jake is definitely the most, I think, stoic member of the band, and you're also typically pretty introverted. Like, you keep to yourself when you want to, and you have no problem doing things on your own. Like, if the whole group is going off to get food somewhere that you don't want to go to, you're just like, fuck it, I'll go by myself to eat.
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of knowing what I want and knowing when it's healthy to kind of give yourself some space. So that's kind of that's why I do that.
But I'm curious because, like, for me, I always would probably opt to be a part of the group unless I'm really tired or unless, as you said, I really need that space. So do you think that stems from being an only child, growing up, having to entertain yourself, having to do a lot of things yourself? I mean, what we wanted to talk about today really stems from Jake's past as a kid, and how over the years he's grown into the person that he is. So, I mean, let's start with that, because I think that your kind of, for lack of a better word, love for solitude sometimes, I would imagine, comes from how you were as a child.
Absolutely, yeah. We had a brief discussion about what we were going to touch on, but it's really quite a deep topic because of the way that it's coming out in public now, where, like, bullying and kids being treated differently at school and all that stuff, it affects you in a very profound manner. So, I'm not any different. I'm not special or anything, but I definitely had a bit of my own struggle of, getting to know who I was and doing that virtually on my own. I had great family support, but they can't be there at school, and they can't be there, like, for every important moment of my life, just because it's, that's just the way that it works. But, I think, like, one of the first things I'd like to touch on is just how growing up as an only child is an incredibly different experience, a life-changing experience, than growing up with siblings. And I think it, like, kind of cascaded throughout my whole life, because when you're at home and you have brothers and sisters kind of beating up on you and picking on you and kind of making those survival instincts kick in, you're a bit more prepared for a public entering the public at a younger age. Whereas like me, it was just me and my mom for a long time. And my mom is like the sweetest woman in the world, and I consider her one of my best friends, and we have a really good relationship. And but like your mom isn't like beating up on you and taking your stuff and really teaching you how to fend for yourself like brothers and sisters normally are. So when I got into when I did my first day in public school, I made it sound like prison. I did my first stint in public school.
Kind of is.
Yeah, in a sense it is. It's kind of a trial by fire, especially when you're a kid and you don't have any sense of what the world is like, and you're kind of putting the pieces together on your own. And I didn't fit in because I didn't have the skills, or a lot of the skills you gain from being around a very active family. My mom worked all the time, so I was home a lot just by myself. And so I just watched cartoons, played Legos, and that was my life. And then I went into public school, and I realized that it can be real brutal, and it can really shape who you are as a person at a really young age. And then you see how that growth affects you throughout your entire life. And I feel like I've been one of the lucky ones, but there's so many stories of how bullying ruins lives, or how like kids segregating into their different cliques can cause division amongst kids, and kids aren't good, like they're not good diplomatically. They just like they have a very high survival instinct because they want to just avoid being the target of bad attention or whatever. So like for me, I just didn't know that it was that bad, so I kind of like went in very optimistically, and then I quickly realized it's like, wow, these kids are kind of jerks.
Like what were some of your first memories of that kind of thing? Like what was the approach that certain people took with you?
I guess like because I grew up with my mom, and my mom being the sweet, wonderful lady that she is, that was imparted to me. I was a very sensitive, like very open, loving kid, and to kids that grow up with like macho dads or macho bros or whatever, that looks like a weakness, or like they just think I'm a wuss or something. It just kind of makes me a target. And so I would probably say something completely like ignorant or just silly or lighthearted, and they take that as like, wow, this guy's such a wuss, let's pick on him, like this is the kid we're gonna pick on. So without getting into too much detail, that's kind of how it started, because I just I didn't know any better. I didn't know like how to interact with kids. I never had any friends at a really, really young age, so going straight into public school, I had to figure that out real quick.
Yeah. How did you figure that out? What was your defense mechanism at that age? Like,
I don't think I did. I don't think I ever figured it out. I think I just I think maybe that's where my propensity for like solitude or like just being by myself comes from, because like I learned the value in that, and how that is how that can be a healthy thing. I guess when I was a kid, it wasn't a healthy thing, because I would separate myself rather than integrate, and it would kind of make me the black sheep of the group. And if there even was a group, it just what kids would be like, well, why is that kid why is he always by himself? Like, why is he always acting weird or whatever? Like, whatever their perception of me was. And then that kind of just, like, got carried along throughout my entire public school career, or whatever you want to call it. But it became, as I got older, I guess what I'd say is I was a late bloomer because of it. And as I got older, I kept being thrust into situations that would help me grow slowly and very slowly and behind the rest of my peers. Those first, the first 6 grades and then junior high and then high school were incredibly difficult, because I had no context. I had no idea how to be in a group, or like how to I don't know, like, I even accept some of the blame for that at this point, because it's just like, like, maybe I didn't know, maybe I was ignorant to, like, how to be a good hang,
Mm-hmm.
but I can see, I can kind of remember specific instances where, like, I was standoffish, or I had a scowl on my face, or something little that would, like, put people off from wanting to befriend me. So,
Well, at what point, because I know you do have some really old friends, like good friends, at what point did you meet, like, friends like Dave, or, like, other, when did you start actually having at least some group? Was that integrated and related to music?
yeah, I didn't, it's not that I didn't have any friends, like, growing up, it's just that, like, in school, you don't really have a lot of time to hang out with them, and then a lot of my friends went to different schools. I moved around a lot, and I guess, like, like somebody like Dave, who really well, because he's always, like, supported us, and he's always come to our shows and stuff. But I met him after I got out of high school, and it's interesting you bring him up, because he's a very, very good example of kind of the person that I was. So this is a funny story. Right after high school, it was like 2001, I moved upstate New York with my mom, and I immediately got a job, and I enrolled in community college, just because I needed to do something with my time, and I wasn't prepared for college, like real college, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no ambitions and no goals, no direction. So I got a job at Radio Shack in the mall, and that's where I met Dave, and I guess, like, it was like the first couple of days, or maybe like the first 2 weeks of me working there, my driver's license had fallen out of my wallet or my pocket or something. It just ended up on the floor, and I guess he had found it, and he was, like, giving it back to me. But I guess, like, the way that I reacted to him, because I had no sense of who I was, he thought, like, I was, like, mad at him, or, like, that I thought that he may have, like, taken that from me, and he was just, like, messing with me.
Right.
And I fully accept the fact that I was probably a dick about it, or something. Can I say dick?
Yeah, you can say fuck, dick,
Okay.
shit, piss.
I was trying to censor myself, but I was just wasn't sure. But yeah, so I thought.
I love how I threw out like that group of words, but yeah, you can say anything you want.
Okay, cool.
That's fine. Yeah.
I'll keep it as family oriented as possible, but Dave was just handing me my license back, like, here you go, you dropped this, and I guess I, like, looked at him in a way, or I wasn't, like, thankful that he kind of saved my ass at that point. Like, at that age, you don't want to lose your driver's license. It would suck. Sucks at any age, but he was such a nice guy, and he could see that, like, there was something behind that scowl, or something behind my personality that was worth getting to know. So he, like, he was persistent about, trying to be my friend at work. And, that really kind of started me on a path of, like, well, maybe it's something that I'm doing. Yeah, sure, there are jerks in the world, and there's plenty of them, and they're definitely to blame. But, like, what am I doing that's putting people off from getting to know me, and, like, getting to, being able to have meaningful friends and relationships and stuff. So, like, I really owe a lot to him. And he always, he'll always bring that up, because he thinks it's hilarious. But
what? Just out of curiosity, what was your actual reaction to him?
I don't really remember. I mean, he just said that, like, I, like, scowled at him, and back then I never smiled. Like, it was just kind of like this thing that I took with me growing up, that I was just like, can't smile, can't show these people that I'm happy, because the moment I do, then they pick on me or something. It's like some psychological discord that, like, made me look like that. So I guess I was probably like, thanks,
right,
instead of, oh, dude, thank you, like, which is the way that I would react now. Like, let me get you lunch or something, thank you for finding my stuff, and that's how I react now. But back then, it wasn't appropriate, and I'm thankful that he saw through the fact that I was acting, that my reaction to that could have been better.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, and like, when you were in high school, I remember some story, or at least I remember the remnants of some story where, like, some dude was being a dick to you, and you were just kind of like, "Fuck you!" Like,
yeah, there's probably a handful of those. Yeah, I don't want to name any names because like I'm sure they're nice people now, and they likely feel bad about acting like a jerk, and there's a really good chance they don't even remember it. So
yeah,
but I remember it because it's just something that I've taken with me, and this is why I wanted to bring this up, because it's like people need to understand when they become parents that their kids need to be good people. They need to be good citizens. They need to help people. They need to not like segregate and divide. But anyways, this kid, what happened was after elementary school, I moved away. And I was like, cool, I can start over, like, new friends.
Where were you and where did you go?
I lived in a town called Suffern, New York, which is funny because it sounds like suffering.
It's funny.
And then I moved upstate to a town called Southfields, which is in between Tuxedo and Monroe, and it's like in the middle of nowhere, essentially. But I went there for a few months, and I really didn't like. I was kind of a ghost there. I just went to my classes and that's it. I didn't really make any friends there. It went by so lightning fast. I was there for about like 6 or 7 months that I really just didn't have a chance to do anything. And there was like some family illness stuff going on at that time, so I was just like completely distracted from school. Then like towards the end of that year, my mom decided that we were going to move back to Suffern. So I basically entered in junior high, 7th grade, like while the year was almost done, and a bunch of the same bullies were still there, acting the same way, but by that point I was so like I was starting to develop my skin and my ability to kind of stand up for myself and to not take any shit. So this one guy in particular, who was like one of like my main bully, like in elementary school, started picking on me, and then I was just like, this motherfucker can't be serious. Like seriously, like I didn't even say anything to him, and he just like started coming up like almost like a kind of like a bad dog, So then like I just turned around without saying a word, grabbed him by his shirt, like walked him over to a staircase and pushed him up against it, and I said, stop fucking with me, and I shook him against the staircase, dropped him. And I kind of just saw red, and that was like the moment that I really started sticking up for myself in those situations. I mean, it got worse before it got better, but that was kind of like the moment that I knew, like, I'm not gonna like let these people walk on me anymore.
Yeah. Did that make an impact specifically with him? Like, did he?
I think so. I mean, he like stopped messing with me after that, and like I guess like I mean, he was still kind of a jerk, and I don't know like how he turned out as a human being, but like I can't recall anything after that I was just like, wow, man, like this is gonna be a war, And
right.
so it kind of was like I set the mood, so to speak, that like dude, if you're gonna come after me now, like it's gonna be a problem for you. And I felt really good about that. It was empowering, and it's so. I don't advise that kids do that, because like you got to be so careful now with like the internet and people filming stuff, and also like you don't want to actually hurt someone. Like you want to get the message across, but it's you take a gamble when you're fighting somebody, especially when you're a kid and you don't know what your limits are yet. You can kill someone. And it's, I don't know how common it is. I don't know the data, but like, for me, like, fighting is a last resort. And I wasn't really proud of myself. The thing I was happy with was that I was left alone. So it was a conflicting thing, but it ended up being a positive thing.
Right. So, two things. One, I saw this video recently that was totally heartbreaking on Facebook, and it was a mother talking about her son who was bullied. And basically in high school, this particular kid was extremely different from everybody else. He was into fishing, he was into hunting, and some people who are listening may have seen this video, and if so, you know what I'm talking about. But he was into hunting and fishing and trapping, and looked different than everybody, but was apparently a really sweet kid and did have some very, very good friends that were of similar, had similar interests as him. But it started, I guess, in school with bullying verbally, people making fun of him, and he would say things like, "Man, why do you hate me? Like, I haven't done anything to you. Like, I don't even talk to you. Like, I avoid you. I walk the other way, and like you keep seeking me out." And it just progressively got worse, where they would I think she was saying, like, they would like pour trash on him, and they would like do things to him, like in gym class. And as a sidebar, Jake, I don't know if you remember, but when we were at our All Things Periphery summer jam camp a couple of summers ago now, there was a lot of conversation that I at least had with a lot of the kids who had been bullied, and some of the shit that I heard they went through was mind-boggling to me. Like, people having their like jock straps rubbed in their faces, and like underwear thrown on them, and shit like stapled to them. That's like shit you see in movies.
Yeah, it's horrific.
It's horrific, and I've talked about this too on the podcast. Like, I'm lucky because I never really had to experience that. Probably because I was always bigger than everybody else.
It has a lot to do with it.
Definitely.
Physical stature is a big reason why I was picked on, because I'm the small guy.
I can understand that, but going back to this story, at one point these kids started telling the kid who was bullied, like, "You know what, man, like, you should just kill yourself. Like, do yourself a favor, do everybody a favor, and just kill yourself. Man up and do it. Like, don't be a pussy. Just do it." And the kid like responded back on a text to the kid, like, he was like, "You know what, fine, I will. Like, I'm gonna." And then I guess the next day at lunch, he told people at the lunch table, and nobody took it seriously. And on the bus ride home, like, the bus driver was like, "All right, well, we'll see you tomorrow." And he's like, "No, you won't." And I guess he texted his one really good friend and was like, "I'm gonna do this." Like, and I guess the friend called the mom and they called the neighbors and so forth. And the result of the story was that they showed up too late, and he had taken a shotgun and killed himself. And that to me is just one of the most like disgusting things that could possibly happen because of bullying and other people, basically demoralizing you and taking away your self-worth. And I think the point, now you dealt with it well because you developed your thick skin and you just said, "Fuck it, I'm not going to take it." But there's a lot of people out there, I think, that probably don't have that same confidence, who maybe are impressionable at a young age and feel like high school or middle school, whatever it is like the end-all be-all pinnacle of what it's going to be.
That's very true.
And it's not.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I had known that kid, because I would have totally told him to forget all that stuff, to do what you want to do, to just either defend yourself. And in that case, like, yeah, fuck yeah, like, defend yourself. Like, even if you do get in trouble in school, it's so much better to get in trouble in school because you're defending yourself and you're growing that thick skin and you're developing those skills, than to have the result be what it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, it is a parenting issue, and I don't want to, like, put all the blame on the parents, because that's not productive, because, like, kids past a certain age have a sentience that is completely their own, and they can make their own decisions, and at that point they should know right from wrong. But it's like there's some sort of lapse in that transition between the kids, like, going to public school from, like, just being at home, like, being watched by their parents all the time. So I believe that, like, in that moment, like, parents have to do everything they can to impart the importance of harmony amongst children, and how dangerous that can be. Because if you're not careful, if you, like, let your kid act a certain way, or you're not proactive in, like, trying to solve a problem, you get things like Columbine and all the other, like, horrific shootings that keep happening. And that's there's a whole nother series of debates that go into that. So it's just like, I think that, like, now, I will say there was probably, like, a few kids who did have that sense, who were good people, And I'll name this guy because he was always the coolest dude. And his name was Ronan Burns, and he was well liked. Everybody thought he was cool. And when I got there that first week in the 7th grade, I was sitting at one of these lunch tables in this enormous cafeteria filled with kids I didn't even know. And he's like, "Yo, dude, come sit with us." And like that was like the best thing that ever happened to me, you know. And it's like in that moment, because I felt like, oh wow, I don't have to be alone out here, you know. And in a sense, that's real. School is really like prison, because it's just like you have to go to this building, you have to interact with these people, you have to interact with the authority, and it's just like, you know, as a kid, you don't know any better. So
it's funny you brought up lunch, because that was my next question. I was going to ask you, what was lunch like for you in high school? Because that's where it really was evident who the kids were that were, well, really in every different kind of group. You know, you had the jocks, you had the popular kids, you had the rebellious kids, but then there were a lot of kids that you could tell were just kind of like on their own, and sometimes they would gravitate towards each other. And I don't want to say they were quote unquote nerds or dorks or things like that I would hear people say, because man, like I still know some of these kids and they're really fucking great people.
yeah,
You know, just despite that. So I won't label them in any way, and I was always I don't know. You can ask my mom. She'll tell you, like, I always had a big heart. Like, I wouldn't feel right about kids being picked on. I would come home from school. She'll tell you a story about, like, I was on the bus one time and this kid was getting picked on, and I defended the kid, and I came home and I was just like, I was crying. I was a mess, because it's like I didn't understand what the fuck they would have any reason to do that for.
Yeah.
And I would always try to be nice to everybody, be friends with everybody. At least I think, it's hard to recall a lot of those situations, but
Yeah.
But what was lunch like for you?
In high school, it was a lot different, because my high school, I don't know how many high schools do this. It was actually one of these things that I wasn't anticipating, but they had this thing called unit lunch, and
Like A, B, C lunches, or
I believe there were 2 lunch periods, but they were back to back, and what would happen is you were able to eat your lunch or hang out anywhere you wanted in the building, like anywhere. And so while that's a great idea, because you don't have like the whole like prison cafeteria thing happening, people would start to go into their cliques, and you'd have, certain more dangerous kids roaming the hallways, kind of like little like gangs roaming around and everything. So like, you kind of knew where in the building, where you could be, where you weren't going to get tripped or shoved or like, hollered at or whatever it was. So once I discovered like kind of like who my group was, which I had good friends sort of, like, and I don't want to, I'm still friends with some of them today, so I don't want to diminish their role of like who they were in my life at all. Like they were good friends to me at that moment, but like when I got out of high school and I started meeting people like Dave and Elliot and you guys and all that stuff, like I kind of like discovered like what true friendship is and what it like really feels like. So like I would go to whatever part of the building that was, hang out with those kids, and then just move on with my day. But it wasn't like it wasn't really like special or anything. I didn't like have any good bonding time with them. So it was still like, even though I was with other people, I was still isolated.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha. Okay. So when did music or guitar come into play for you as maybe a hobby at first? And when did it become the thing that you knew you wanted to really do?
Well, that started really young. I was probably like 8 years old when I discovered like, okay, I want to play the guitar, and I probably want to be in a band and all that stuff. Like I knew that young, because my mom took me to a music store. I think she was buying sheet music for like an opera or something, or she used to play the flute and the classical guitar, so she's always at the music store getting sheet music, and I would tag along and see all like the cool instruments on the wall, and that's kind of like how I knew. And everybody in my family played too, so it was easy to kind of see like, oh yeah, being a musician is a that's a normal thing. But once I was able to start bringing my guitar to school, I would do that, and I would just play guitar in the hallways and just kind of like be by myself. In high school they had this thing called guitar club, so like after you were done eating your lunch you could go to any one of these clubs, and there was a guitar club. However, like a lot of the kids who were like kind of aggressive, or like just kind of like, they were like those borderline bullies where they're like they're not nice to you, but they don't like, you know, shove you or whatever. But they would always kind of like hog there was like kind of this one band that would just play the entire time and not let any of the other people that were like trying to like wait for their turn.
Right.
So like I stopped going to that pretty quickly, but yeah, that was kind of it. Like for 4 years, it was just the same thing every day. Like just, you know, get your lunch, go find some place where your friends are hanging out, and just sit there, and that's it. There was nothing meaningful about it, and you know, at that age, some of those other kids, some of those bullies were a lot scarier. You know, like they were serious. Like they were doing drugs. They were definitely like all having sex with each other. Like it was just like they were trying to act like adults. So like if you said anything or looked at them like, you know, cockeyed, like you're gonna get hurt. Like it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like a shoving match. Like these kids, like, you know, there was one kid in particular who like everybody was scared of because they knew that he had guns at home, and they knew that he carried a knife with him all the time, and he was just kind of a fuck up. Like he ended up committing suicide because he was just like so messed up in the head. But like you know, I was scared of that kid. Like I didn't trust him. He targeted me one time, and like I just kind of like kept my mouth shut because like I was worried that he's gonna like stick a knife in me, you know. And like that's in high school. That's pretty scary stuff for a kid to be dealing with. So it was made me even more isolated, I guess.
Yeah, I can imagine so. Well, so, and when did you start playing in bands? When did the music thing become more than just a hobby for you?
Well, it came in phases. Like in high school, I had my friend Harry, who was he was a drummer, and we would just get together in his basement and just jam on stuff that we thought sounded cool. We didn't know anything about composition or writing songs or even like good practicing habits. That came way later, but it was just kind of the thing to pass the time and like something to make us feel cool and tell people about, yeah, we're in a band, you know. But it never really went anywhere. But that was the first time I ever played with like another drummer. So and then like I guess like the first time I ever played on stage had to be way later, like in 2004 maybe 2003. No, it was like 2004. I joined a hardcore band because I just wanted to play. I was like tired of like not like getting any stage time or like learning how to load in or going to the venue or selling tickets or whatever. And so like even though like I wasn't like big, I didn't know anything about hardcore. I ended up getting fired from that band because, and I shit you not, the phone call was like, hey Jake, look man, like we really like you, but like your style isn't like what we're looking for. And I'm like, what's wrong with my style? Like, do I suck at guitar? And he's like, no, that's the problem. Like you play like metal, and like you like want to like, you know, shred, and we just like want riffs, you know. So so it was like kind of like this like compliment, but I was really destroyed because I was like, oh man, that was I got fired. Okay, now I know what that feels like.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. It's like you get fired for like the thing you're trying not to do. I don't know. It's weird.
But it's funny. I mean, we now it's still a very similar thing. Like in the history of our band, there's been people that have come and gone. People have auditioned at different points who have been pretty good.
Yeah.
But they're just not the right fit.
Exactly.
You know, and now I think we understand that a lot more than maybe you did back then.
Yeah, back then I was like, nah, like this guy's just messing with me. He thinks I suck, but like wants to like make it real soft for me, you know, and like, but no, it really is like a thing. Like you have to have the right people, and like, you know, there's a million musicians out there who are better than me that will like that that could play this music, but if they're not the right fit, like personality wise or just stylistically, it's just not going to work. So
Yeah. So, just to touch on that a minute, what do you think of the personality mixture that we have going on this bus? And like, because here's why I ask this, because I get messages a lot, and I'm sure you do too. After Nolly left the band, who was our bass player, for those that don't know who that is, a lot of people have asked, like, hey, you know, can I audition? Can I join the band? Or, you know, you guys, whatever. Like, and we've made a pretty clear decision that we're not going to be taking on another player. I think a lot of that has to do with what I was asking you about, like, the dynamic of all of us.
Yeah. It's like this thing that we've kind of knew what we wanted, but also stumbled into, because and you were there for a really big part of this, the early development of the band. It's just like when you have the wrong people in the group, they're not bad people, they're great musicians. It's just that certain things that don't mesh well with each other creates a toxic environment that can destroy a band. And you know, it's not like I'm like doomsaying or anything, but this band has been close to annihilation several times because of the personnel not meshing or not making the right decisions together, or people rubbing another person the wrong way over a long period of time, to where it's like creating resentment. And it's like, I talk about this a lot when people talk about the band, when I'm talking with people about the band, or like in interviews or whatever it is. It's that, like, we are so lucky that we have what we have now, because in most cases it's like a toxic relationship. It gets worse before it'll ever get better, and then it just ends in breakup, divorce, or dissolving the band. And lucky for us, like, we figured out our personnel issues, we figured out our communication issues, we've learned how to communicate with each other in a way that's healthy for the greater good, because we understand that, like, not only do we love the band and we want it to go on as long as we can make it go on in a healthy manner, but we've discovered that we all love each other. And, like, that's the hardest thing, because once resentment is built, and once people spend enough time together where they're just like I'm done, I don't want to hang out with this person anymore. Like, it went in the opposite direction with us. Once we figured out what each other is really like, what they want, what their personalities are like, now, like, this is the best it's ever been amongst us together. And to me, I can't, I'm so grateful for that, because, like, we joke about it, about, like, other bands, how they, like, especially, like, really big bands that are just together because they know it's, like, a fat paycheck, but they get, like, their separate bus, and they get, like, they don't talk to each other until they have to go on stage or whatever. Yeah. And it's just like, man, that's not worth it to me. Like, if I'm going to be out here, I'm not going to be alone. Hanging out with you guys is, like, the best part of being on tour. It's better than playing the show. It's just, like, hanging out with you guys, going to breakfast, talking shit. Like, that is absolutely the most fun part. So if, like, you take that away, for me, there's nothing left.
Yeah.
And I think, like, it's absurd that, I mean, whatever makes you happy. If you're willing to set aside your differences to, keep the machine running and keep the company going, and that's okay with you and you're happy with that, by all means. But for me, that's not worth it. And I think for a lot of the guys in this band, that's not worth it. So luckily, we love each other, and it's just gotten healthier, and we've learned the value of good communication. That's one of those things that people always say, oh, well, you just got to communicate. And it's like, no, that's cliche when you say it like that. Learning to communicate is what you have to do. Anybody can communicate, but learning, like, what each individual person is on the inside is, like, how we've all learned to deal with each other. And I can't, like, I'm grateful that everyone realized that, because you always get, like, one or two or most of the people, like, not realizing that, and then you're right back where you started.
It's also holding each other accountable, and by no means what I'm about to say is, like, me tooting my own horn, but I got wind of some things yesterday because with what I've been dealing with at home, and I've been traveling sort of back and forth on the days off, and making myself as available as I can to home while balancing the tour, it created a little bit of unease, I guess, with you guys, because it's funny that the flow of communication sometimes doesn't make its way through everybody, and I really was communicating with one person that's part of our group, and hoping that person would share the information with everyone, and that didn't happen. So when I got wind that there were some questions and that people were curious and they were concerned and worried, the first thing that I did, as uncomfortable as this may be for some other people to do, was when we were sitting right back here where we are now in the back lounge, like, Jake, you were here with Misha, you guys were having a conversation, I came back, and I was just like, hey, like, I heard that people were curious and talking when I wasn't around. And I want to clarify, I never, and no one in this band ever, is concerned anymore about people talking shit, because that's something that we've eliminated from the culture of this group. No one talks shit behind each other's backs. But there is, of course, when there's concerns or when there's questions, they're brought up, and I wasn't around, so rightfully so, these conversations happened when I wasn't there. But we called everybody into the room, we all sat back here, and aside from, without divulging everything that we discussed, what I did really notice about the whole conversation was that it was just such a difference between how we would have communicated 2 years ago, in a room, where what we're doing is being completely honest, despite the potential implications, despite other people's feelings, despite what it might mean in the future for certain things, and I don't want to alarm anyone. There's nothing like that's terrible, but the point is, it's like there were hard conversations can be had now, completely above the boards, with everybody in the room, and it takes a long time. It took us a long time to be able to get to that point, but
yeah.
I try to practice that now in every relationship that I have, and with you guys, it's definitely probably the easiest, because we've done it so much now.
Yeah. And it can also be a proving ground for, like, when you need to do it outside of the band. You can kind of get your practice on, like, how you would handle a situation, because we're all so easygoing with each other now. But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's like that's how we save our band, and that's how we nurture our relationship with each other, and how there's not, like, resentment amongst us, because we're just like, it's like, hey, you want to talk about this? Everybody's here, let's talk about it. And, like, nobody raises their voice, everybody listens, everybody waits for people to finish. Like, it used to be like, somebody would say something, another person would get defensive, talk over that person, then the voices would get raised, and it's just like, that's a very typical reaction. But because we've learned how important it is to communicate with each other in a very specific way that's unique to each individual, we got to the bottom of some really, really good stuff, and we, at the end of the conversation, we were all saying I love you to one another. So, like, how many bands do that? Like, I don't think very many, just based on what I know about the industry. So I'm just like, I'm so grateful.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we came to a good consensus of, like, how, I think over the past bunch of months, we've been communicating honesty and sharing our truth with each other about how we want to function as a band over the next bunch of years. We've gotten to a point where each of us have our own needs as humans, not just band members, and I think that it's interesting to see now how everyone is extremely open to accommodating certain things and certain needs, and I'm excited, more so than I was the day before yesterday, now that we had this talk, to really just kind of, like, see how things are gonna unfold with the band, knowing that we are a strong unit. Yeah. And that we can weather good and bad things.
Yeah. So the pressure has changed. Like, I think, like, before you're about to propose certain, a certain direction or a certain, like, idea on, like, how you want to proceed as a band, and, like, how you want to approach the next album or touring or whatever it is, like, there's a lot of pressure, because you don't know how, like, people are going to react to that. And it's just like, you want to make sure that you're clear about what you mean, and not, like, mess up what you're going to say and create worry amongst the band members, but like because we do it the way that we do it, it kind of makes things very clear, takes the pressure off. Everybody's supportive of one another and what they want. We all try to come to a consensus or a compromise on how we're going to go forward.
Yeah, it's good, and I resonate with what you were saying of, it helps you to get the gumshoe to do it in other areas, for sure. So just to kind of to transition a bit, I want to address some of the questions that were sent in from our Facebook group, which, by the way, if you're listening and you have not joined the Chocolate Croissants Facebook group, I would definitely encourage you to do so. It's a really active community of people that are sharing things all the time. And I don't mean just like, sharing like what they're doing on a daily basis, but people sharing their challenges, asking questions, looking for advice, offering advice. It's just a very helpful community that's extremely engaged. And if you're curious to know what it's about, or if you're looking to have a quote-unquote safe place to be able to communicate with other people that are not going to judge you and that are willing to listen, then I would recommend you check it out. So if you want to see it, or want to go see what's going on there, you can go to facebook.com/groups/chocolate croissants. You can just request to be added to the group, and one of us, either myself, Jordan, or Justin, will add you guys to the group. And Jake, if you ever want to hop in there, we have a lot of the guests that have been on the podcast that are there too, who can take questions directly. And
absolutely.
Before we did this podcast earlier today, I just posted that you were going to be on, and we got a whole bunch of questions. So I want to dig into that. But there was something else that you mentioned, and maybe we already touched on this, but I kind of want to touch on it from a different standpoint, and hopefully it's okay. But in the early years of the band, you had a nickname.
Oh yeah.
You were Rampage.
Yeah, I was Rampage. That's
and
right.
And I, it's funny now because it's hard for me to remember you getting pissed about things, because now you're very even keeled and I think you handle things a lot differently. But you had touched on how you think being in this band and being with the group has helped you to evolve as a human being, essentially from who quote-unquote Rampage was to who you are now.
Yeah.
Is there a specific instance, or is there specific things that occurred that made you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you were actually there for like my transition. I remember a very specific discussion that I'll get to in a minute, but I should explain what Rampage is, because it sounds worse than it really is, but it actually was not great. It wasn't like something that we all laugh at it, but it's like not something that I'm particularly proud of. Like, I don't like the fact that I was such a specific way that it warranted a nickname. Now it's amusing because I'm a much different person, but had I stayed like that, I probably wouldn't be in the band today. Anyways, I guess Rampage was probably born from all that bullying stuff I was talking about, and you kind of develop your personality based on like what your survival instincts were, and my survival instincts were get pissed, be tough. You're a short guy, like you gotta get in people's faces if they piss you off or whatever, otherwise they're just gonna walk on you. What I didn't know is that there's a balance to that. Yeah, you can be confident and you can be sure of yourself and you can, stand up for what you believe is the right thing, but it's, if there's a lot of negativity surrounding that, it's destructive. And I had to have some interactions with certain band members to kind of realize that was like the wrong thing. And me and Misha used to get into it a lot. Like you remember.
Oh, it's funny because Misha was on the podcast and Mark was on the podcast, and everybody talks about having. Well, no, really, what I was gonna say was everybody talks about me and Misha having it out, which you're very aware of too. But yeah, I do recall back then you and Misha definitely had some blowouts.
Yeah, it just was this thing like where he would catch me at the wrong, like there's I don't know, he just has like this uncanny ability, or at the time had this uncanny ability to just like, he knew how to go through for my jugular, and he would do it, and I would just respond in kind, and it wasn't like, we're very strong personalities, the two of us, and we've also been together the longest, so like there is a lot of history, of growing Periphery together, and I have to say, like, I am so proud of Misha and how much he's just grown as a person and how he's grown as my friend, and like I just I can't imagine life without him or hanging out with him. So I want everyone to know beforehand, before I get into this whole Rampage business, that like that's where me and Misha are now. We're like best buddies. So like, anyways, like I guess there were various instances when we were touring in a van, which is a very difficult life, and everybody handles it differently. And I just handled it with a bad attitude, and there were quite a few times I was pretty mean to Alex Boyce, our old guitar player, and I feel really bad about it. And like, he's such a nice guy, and like he didn't deserve for me to kind of like blow up on him the way that I did. Like, I'm not saying that like any of the things that he did were okay or not okay. I could have just handled my interactions with him better. Same thing with Tom, definitely with Misha. And there was a point of time, I think it was like 2010, 2011, where like it was like a practice at Marquides' house or something, and we were talking, and I'm just like, look, man, I don't think I can be negative anymore. I think I need to get that out of my life. I think it's destroying me. And it kind of like, that wasn't, I didn't just all of a sudden overnight change, and I was like the guy I wanted to be. I'm still trying to become that guy that I like envisioned I'd want to be. But like, like old Jake would see like, comments on the internet and have to respond to them and like get mad and like, get the upper hand, or like, if somebody like was picking on me in the group or whatever, I'd, find something I knew that was like hella embarrassing, or like just like get them back as hard as I could. And like, if like something didn't go right logistically, like I think Alex got the van stuck in Alex Boyce got the van stuck in a
oh god, that was in Florida. That was in
Jacksonville. Yeah, and there was this knockdown, drag out brawl melee in the parking lot, and there was a hurricane like storm that came and went really quickly. And then once all the dust settled from both those things, we noticed that our van was parked in this section of the parking lot where there were no other like buses or vans, and it flooded. And I'm like, Alex, can you please move the van? And it got like I just started yelling at him in front of other people, and like it was bad. It wasn't like I hated that I did that, and I felt really awful.
We should clarify that the knockdown drag out brawl wasn't between us.
Oh yeah, I guess I should have mentioned that. Yeah, it was like the
local
security guards,
yeah.
and like some like whatever bands, but like I remember, I'll never forget this dude, this like really tough looking security guard picked up hi-hats and
one of my cymbal stands.
Yeah, something, and Alex was like, whoa, this is ours, put it down, please put it down. Like he was like begging with him not to beat the crap out of somebody with one of our cymbal stands.
It's true.
So, but anyways, so he got the van stuck in the mud, and he tried to, and I yelled at him in front of a couple other friends, and I definitely like embarrassed him, and I embarrassed myself too. And then he went to go move the van, and I guess like because the water like flooded all the ants underground.
Yeah, he got attacked by fire ants.
He got attacked by, his whole leg was covered in ants. So like
that was a pretty shit day.
That was one of the worst days on tour I think I can think of. But anyways, it was just one of the Rampage moments. I still have a residual Rampage personality disorder, which is called Airport Jake. But everybody likes Airport Jake because he gets the bill down and he gets bags checked for free.
Yeah.
And haven't been kicked out off an airline yet, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love the. So just for some context, when we fly international, airlines love to absolutely fuck us on baggage fees, and especially because we fly with so much gear and we look like a bunch of degenerates in a band when we show up. But
it's heavy stuff.
Yeah, but there seems to be this like there's four of us. There's this group of four that kind of changed between good cop, bad cop, and worse cop, and it's usually me, you, Alex Marquides, our front of house, and Matt Rosenblum, Rosie, our tour manager. And Rosie's always super nice and like, you know, he does his best to be cool. Alex is great at like just kind of finagling what he can. I don't want to share his secrets, but that dude's got some real good secrets for airports. But then it's typically you and me that will bounce between like good cop and bad cop. Sometimes I'm like, all right, Jake, I'm working on this. I forget where it was, but I think when we were flying from Perth to Korea, maybe, or no, from Perth to Singapore.
Yeah,
like they try to charge us like $8,000 in baggage fees on top of. It would
have been worth to skip that trip.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And between the two of us, like, you know, it could have gone two different ways. So sometimes Airport Jake is great.
Yeah.
Other times Airport Jake, you want to just kind of like give him a cookie and tell him to sit down.
I kind of knew like, okay, I don't need to be deployed right now, because like after like I realized that you guys had it as handled as it could be, because like I started giving that woman an attitude, like, and then you're like, nah, go away, and I was like, okay, you got this.
Yeah.
And then we ended up being able to fly for a bit less money, but it was still gouging. I was
still angry. She chopped it. I think she chopped it down by like in half or 3/4. Our bill was like between $2,000 and $4,000 instead of $8,000. But yes, but that being said, there's also times when like Airport Jake comes in the clutch and we just kind of sit back and let you do your thing and it works. But it usually depends on the person on the other end. If the person on the other end is a raging asshole,
right? They want to butt heads. They want to test their mettle against somebody who is also a raging asshole.
Right, and we let that happen sometimes, and it's actually really entertaining, and it usually works out to our benefit because there's enough of us that when we put our foot down, like, we can try to get what we want. But, you know, it's funny, like, I've seen everybody in this band sometimes be a raging asshole. Most notably on that same tour when we were in Taiwan and throughout China. We had some issues with our promoter, and woof.
Damn, that guy is reconsidering his career.
the last thing you want is like a combination of me and Misha and Jake, but more specifically on that run.
I don't think I have what you guys have. Like, you guys, like, that was a learning experience for me, because I saw like this guy just he was like deconstructed at a molecular level, like with Misha and Matt just tearing him apart. It was pretty amazing, and
but he deserved it.
He completely deserved it, and we're talking like a lot of foul play here. Like, I'm not going to go into the details, but it was
thievery. I mean, it was stuff that in the States would be completely illegal.
Yeah, the cops would be involved.
Exactly.
So like Matt and Misha really had it under control, and it was like, it's just we work well together because we understand like what our strengths are and like where we can be useful in terms of negotiating and being, you know, because like nobody wants to be an asshole. Nobody wants to be mean. Like I wanted to like that guy. I wanted our trip to Asia to go really smoothly, and it did for a lot of it. But once we got to his region, it was very. It was sketchy, so he had to be like put in his place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's go a little bit to some of these questions from the group. Now, there's a lot of questions in here about guitar and, you know, musically based stuff, and I think you probably have answered a lot of those questions in other places. And we try to avoid guitar-based questions and specific things like that.
Yeah. I'll just say anything you want to know, like guitar-based wise, just hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and I'll try my best to answer those questions.
Yeah, and Jake, like I said, if you have a chance to even hop in, to the group. I'll preview. There's a thread here where if there's certain questions that you want to answer directly, you can. There's like 40 questions plus on this on this thread. So
awesome.
You know, people are really curious. So. One of the questions I guess, and you sort of answered this, but this is from Brianna Ingram. She says, Jake always strikes me as the quiet but goofy one in the band. I want to know what your favorite things about tour are, or also your least favorites. And is it weird being interviewed by someone you spend hours with already? Like, you're on the same bus together and presumably know pretty much everything about each other. Is this weird?
I'll start with that part first. No, it's not weird. I've been excited to hopefully get asked to do this because I've listened to the other ones, and by the way, congratulations on episode 32. That's cool. I didn't know you had that many.
Thank you.
Yeah, you've been killing it with this stuff, and I think like something Matt understands and something that I understand is that like there's a lot more to the machine than just the music or playing or like what we do together musically, and there's so much like how they have reality television shows. I think that like if they had the right backing and the right production company, there could be a good reality TV show about this level of touring. Like everybody knows what like Drake and Madonna and all those guys do, but this level of touring is incredibly special because it requires a mindset that those people don't have, and it's something that we can kind of discuss, and we can kind of discuss like how we got here and what's going on in our lives outside of just the music stuff, because the music stuff is just like that's all over the place now like we want to delve deeper. We want to get into the actual like soul and essence of who we are, why we're here, why anything we say should be listened to, or where you could find tidbits of wisdom that might be useful. So that's kind of like why I'm excited to do this. And the parts of the other question is my favorite thing on tour is hanging out with my boys. Like I spend a lot of time at home alone. I have friends there, but I do spend a lot of time at home because I have my dog, and I'm like a total geek about my place. Like all I do is like spend time like making my place exactly the way I want it, and I listen to music and I write music and I do all this stuff. But when I go on tour, it's like my time to just like bro down for a month straight and like get like my male bonding time and go. We have this thing called the Breakfast Club.
Yep.
I'm sure you've talked about it on one of these podcasts, but like there's a couple of early risers in the band, me and Matt and our crew, and we just get up and we find like the dopest brunch place or like the coffee spot that's going to be the spot for the day, and we go there and we wake up and we poop and we just like it's so fun. Like it's just like it's something I really look forward to.
Well, just in case my girlfriend's listening, I don't poop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
right,
just
it's just us. Actually, it's just me.
Get that straight, Jake.
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. All right. And then the thing I liked the least, was that part of the question?
Yeah.
Just being away from my dog. I think you can relate to that.
I can 100% relate to that. Absolutely.
It's the most heartbreaking thing about leaving. It's just like, I don't know if this is with just him or with all dogs, but it's something, you notice every little, if even just the slightest thing on them is out of place, you notice. And with Tycho, I try to do it very covertly, start packing my bags, but he knows. I'll close the door to my closet where I have enough room in there where I can like get packed, but I'll see his paws like go in under the door, and he's just like sitting there, and I could see his nose like in the bottom going and he smells the suitcase coming out of the storage, and so he knows.
Oh, it's the worst. It's the worst.
It's the absolute worst. And then the physical thing that I can visually see is I'll open the door and I'll look at his eyes, and they're like these undefined pupils. Like they're just like, and his ears go back, and you can just tell that he is like completely destroyed.
Yeah.
And that's like that's the worst moment of my life right then and there. It's like when I see that, I hate breaking his heart.
Yeah, dude, Tyson lays on my clothing. Yeah,
he's like, well, if I lay on this shit, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, he puts his head down and like just totally knows what's going on. And I try to do it a few days in advance, like at least get everything ready so that he's okay with like it being in piles and my suitcase being out. And, like he's like, wait, you're not leaving yet? Okay, cool. Yeah. But it I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but
no, I don't think you are. They're really smart. I think people don't give dogs enough credit.
Definitely. Here's a more just a more fun question from Ricardo Rec. I think that's how you pronounce it. If you could play for an old classic rock band, who would it be?
Oh, wow. Maybe Boston. I'm a big Boston fan. Thin Lizzy.
Cool.
I mean, I guess like they're a lot older at this point. I guess like the stuff that I grew up on is starting to become classic rock. But I'd love to play guitar and Corrosion of Conformity. They were one of my favorite bands growing up.
Yeah, Corrosion of Conformity was awesome. People are definitely asking about solo material a lot. Do you plan on releasing more? Are you working on anything like that now?
Yeah, me and Misha just finished an EP that we're mixing and mastering right now, and I'm really stoked on it. And it's kind of like my electronic stuff, but since I worked on it with Misha and he wrote a lot of it too, it was like this perfect union of like his impeccable, amazingly clean production style and like with electronic music. So it was just this really fun project that we worked on together, and basically it was work on music, play Destiny, eat food, work on music, so on and so forth. So it was just this week of just doing fun stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, let's do two more questions, and then there's one other thing I want to ask you too.
Sure.
So if you couldn't be a guitarist in a band, do you have any other skill sets that might make you good for a different kind of job in or they're asking in the music industry, but even outside the music industry, I would ask. And that was from Cameron Khan.
Oh, okay. Man, I think about this stuff quite a bit because, like, as much as we want to believe that our favorite bands or the bands we listen to are going to last forever, they're probably not. You're probably going to, there's going to come a time when, like, it just needs to end, or people are ready to move on, or they've done what they set out to do. So, like, I'm not anywhere near that. I don't think anyone is. But the, being prepared is, the Boy Scouts motto, and it's something we all think about. It's like we want to know what we're going to be doing in case something like this happens. And I've given it a lot of thought. And I guess, like, if I was going to do something in the industry, I'd like to do A&R for a guitar company or a pickup company. Ideally, Ibanez or DiMarzio, if they thought I was, if I had the ability to do something like that. I think I'd be really good at helping people build guitars and, like, figure out what they like in their instrument and what they, or even seeking out new talent. I feel like I have a good sense of what's new and coming out and fun. And I guess, like, outside of music, I don't know if I'd do anything. I think I would just kind of, like, if I wasn't able to kind of just live off my savings and just stay at home and take care of Tycho, then I might get, like, a part-time job somewhere just to keep the lights on. But, like, I think I would kind of live in the woods and grow stuff. My dad has a farm, so I could probably just go work on that.
That's awesome. And it's funny, Jordan and Justin, who are my other partners for the podcast, always comment that, like, after a good statement, I say, that's awesome. But I genuinely think that's awesome. So I'm not just saying that to fill the space. Like,
Thanks.
I know you've talked about that before, and you're pretty resourceful, so I think that would be a really appropriate thing that you might do, and I could see you doing that.
Yeah.
Okay, so one more question that's pretty specific. From Lucas Succi, I think it's pronounced. So, do you sometimes have days when you do not even pick up the guitar, and when you come back to it, do you feel refreshed?
Absolutely, and I think people must do that. I think unless you're kind of like a Jason Richardson or like a Matt Gartzko, where you're just like you practice, like, your life is practicing 4 to 6 hours a day, and, like, you're just at that level where your connection to the instrument requires that dedication. I think it's incredibly healthy, at least for me, to step away from the instrument for a day, for a week, maybe 2 weeks. I try not to go longer than 2 weeks, because if I don't practice the Periphery material, it just goes out of my head. So I have to, like, keep it fresh. I have to play a couple songs a day or something like that. But just in terms of just, like, playing and writing, and even practicing stuff, I need to take periodic breaks from it, because if I don't, I just start going down these spirals of practicing the same thing, or not. Like, I need perspective, and I get perspective by soundtracks, by new music, by just even going outside. So like all those things really, really help, and I have to take breaks. It's actually essential to me as a player.
Cool. That's good. And I we've talked about that a lot on the podcast. The importance of kind of stepping away from the thing that you do a lot to get perspective and to sort of refine that inspiration that you may need. So it's good to hear that you do that as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned new music. So Jake, for those that don't know, he's really active on Spotify, and you have a pretty amazing group, I think, still of Spotify playlists, or like one main playlist. So a lot of people are asking like where you get your electronic music influence from, or what things inspire you musically. So where can people find that Spotify playlist so that they can actually tune into what you're listening to?
Absolutely.
And are you still updating it?
Yeah. I'm highly active on Spotify, and I try to make playlists as often as possible. I'm Jake Periphery on Spotify, and
pretty much on every other social too.
Yeah,
right?
I try to keep it consistent, so that way you don't really have to think much about it. Yeah, I really owe Spotify a lot. And, there's this, like, kind of like, when you're an artist, this anti-streaming sentiment because they don't compensate the artist as much as they should, which I also agree with. However, they offer a service that is just, I think it's the best. I think it's the best in the world. I tried all the other ones. Like, I really did. I did my research. I even had Spotify when it first came out, got rid of it, tried a bunch of other things, and I just came back to Spotify. So the hands down most important thing about Spotify to me is the Discover Weekly playlist. And what it does is it pays attention. There's an algorithm that pays attention to your listening habits and what you're into, and then every Monday it populates a playlist of about 30 songs, and it's all new artists. Like, very rarely does it like pop up with a song I've heard before. And if it is, it's just because it's like on a different like compilation, or it's like the single version or whatever. But every week I get brand new music, and at this point I probably have something like 4,000 to 4,500 songs just saved because of that Discover Weekly playlist. And what's cool about it is that like you find that one song you like, then you can select show me more like this. And it does a really good job of actually showing you more that's like that. A lot of things offer that service, but they just don't hit the mark. So if you're considering streaming or getting a streaming account, or you're on the fence about it, or like I can't say it enough, get Spotify. If you like electronic music, follow Jake Periphery on Spotify, and you'll see all this stuff. I also put my what I'm listening to, that's public. So when I'm listening to a song, you can see it, and
that's cool.
Yeah,
that's definitely cool. I mean, I've picked up so much music from you. I don't personally use Spotify, but anything that you're playing in the bus or like in the venue, in the backstage rooms, wherever, it's like always like, Jake, what is that?
Yeah.
I'll take notes, and I find that on my Apple Music. So
yeah.
It's Jake's got some good taste and some good music, and I see where you get some good inspiration. So unfortunately, guys, we got to wrap up. There's probably a lot more that we could dig into, but at some point, I think it'd be really fun to do like a full band episode. At this point, I only have Spencer left to interview out of the Periphery gang, but it'd be really fun to get everybody in a room. Maybe we can do it on this tour and just have people sit in on what it's like to have all of us in a room together, completely like kind of candid, whether it's we're talking about a specific topic or just kind of, talking about the things that we've sort of discussed by scratching the surface more in depth as a whole. I think that could be really fun.
I think it would be cool, and I think it would give people a window into like how we communicate with each other, because I think we're so comfortable with how we are with one another that I think it would come across good, even though we know the record button is hit.
Oh yeah, yeah,
so,
and
I'm down.
Yeah, I don't. Do you feel comfortable in this scenario with the record button on?
Yeah. I like, to me, I've done a few podcasts before, and I guess like the attitude is like we're just having a conversation, you know.
Yeah, and you
I
can
hope it
say
comes
fuck.
off. Yeah, you can definitely say fuck.
Yeah, you can say fuck. So guys, if you aren't subscribing weekly already to the podcast, we would absolutely love for you to do so. I consume all of my podcasts through my iPhone apps. My app of choice is just simply Apple Podcasts. So I subscribe shamefully to my own podcast. And the way I did that was just I opened up my app. I went to the search icon. I searched for chocolate croissants, popped right up, and then I hit the subscribe button. And typically, either every Sunday night or early Monday morning, our episodes get released. And usually, I'm somewhere, if I'm not on tour, where I have access to Wi-Fi. So those episodes automatically download to my phone, and I don't have to use up any data. Because it's downloading via the Wi-Fi. So if you like the content we're producing, if you've enjoyed the episodes so far, then we really encourage you to open up your podcast app of choice and subscribe to the Chocolate Croissants podcast. Again, we would absolutely love it if you would be interested in joining our Facebook group. There's a lot of great stuff there, a lot of good value for you. If you need help with anything on a personal level, business level, musical level, creative level, you can probably find some good answers there, or at least get pointed in the right direction of where to go to get the answers you need. And lastly, if you really enjoyed this episode, if you enjoyed our other episodes, then please tell us. The ratings and the reviews that we get on iTunes have been extremely helpful for us to get some more visibility of our podcast. The numbers are growing weekly. We're seeing more and more people listening weekly, and that's a testament to you guys really going out there and spreading the word via word of mouth, and also leaving us so far overwhelmingly positive reviews and overwhelmingly positive ratings that we are extremely grateful for. So if you have a few minutes and you'd be willing to share your thoughts and give us a rating, please do so, because it not only helps us, but we'd like to think that we try to at least provide value every episode, and the more value we can provide to more people, then the better it is for everybody. So the more the better. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for listening to episode 32. Jake and I are going to go run inside and sound check, and then we're going to get on with the show here in Philadelphia. If you're going to be here tonight, let us know after the fact, because this episode won't be out until Monday. Let us know if you like the show. Feel free to hop into the group and tell us if you were there, and tell us what you think of me and Jake's stage dynamics. It's usually pretty fun. And if you had a chance to see the picture that I posted in the Facebook group of Jake, you'll see what I mean. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end this with Jordan's signature sign-off. I'm sorry that Justin and Jordan couldn't be here today, but we are in separate locations. So, again, thank you for tuning in to just me and Jake. And with that being said, bye-bye.
Hey guys, Justin here once again. Thank you so much for checking out episode 32 of the Chocolate Croissants podcast. We really, really appreciate you taking the time to listen to these episodes. It means so much to us, and we really appreciate it. What was your biggest takeaway from this episode? Was there a line that Matt or Jake said that really resonated with you? Was there a story that Jake told that got you going? Anything, whatever it was, we would love you to join the Facebook group. If you're already a member, comment or message what your biggest takeaway from this episode was. If you're not part of the group yet, go to facebook.com/groups/chocolate croissants. We'll get you in, and then please drop us a line and let us know your biggest takeaway from this episode. Your feedback is incredible, and we love it, and it's just great for us to actually hear what is the most inspirational thing from each episode, so that we can try to double down maybe on something similar for future episodes. That would be awesome, incredible, and greatly appreciated by all of us. One last time, I want to remind you about our sponsor for this episode, and that was Nata Tattoo. And what's super cool is that they're offering this great discount code of 25% off anything in their store. Anything, everything, 25% off. And now, to give you a little bit more context about the company, this is taken directly from their website. I think it says everything that you guys need to hear about the company. It says Nata Tattoo is the premier all-natural, 100% USDA certified organic tattoo aftercare line. They believe in sustainably resourced ingredients that are cruelty-free and of the highest quality. Their mission is to educate tattoo artists and collectors of the optimal way to preserve and care for their tattoos and skin while knowing the products have been formulated and made responsibly. Their tattoo foaming soap and aftercare lotion will allow your skin to heal beautifully, while their tattoo balm will help you keep your ink looking bright and bold for years to come. So, all you have to do is go to natatattoo.com. That's NAT-A-TAT 2.com, and use the code in all caps chocolate25, chocolate25, the numbers 25 at checkout, and you get 25% off any and all products. Cool. That's it for this week. Next week, I believe, is Javier from Animals as Leaders. Not 100% sure, so join the group if you aren't already a member, facebook.com/groups/chocolate croissants. If you are a member, then you'll find out this week. Just stay up to date, get in the group, drop a few lines, see what's going on, and you'll hear from one of us this week announcing that episode 33 will be someone. Pretty sure it's Javier. Pretty sure it's going to be Matt again. So, thank you guys. As always, we appreciate the support. Big hug and kiss. Love you all. See you next week.